This video is going to be my reaction to the announcement that the Baltimore Ravens and Ronnie Stanley have agreed on an extension, 3 years, I believe $60 million, 44 million guaranteed if I read it correctly. Wanted to get some film associated with this video. I'm not sure that we as hardcore Ravens fans necessarily need to see the film. We know who Ronnie Stanley is at this point. We know that his 2024 was vastly superior to 2023, which was injury riddled and we unfortunately had to watch him compete out there when we knew he wasn't 100%. He did get called for a number of penalties this past season. The illegal formations in week one, I mean, he got called for three and never thereafter again. The holds and false starts are tough for me to stomach. 6 false starts for a veteran tackle, and in fact, many of them from midseason on. That was concerning. 4 holds as well. I think his lack of anchor in 2023, which additional to that, less mobility than we were used to, vastly different in 2024. The contract, is it warranted? Is it too much? I don't know. I think he was better, more powerful, more consistent, clearly looked healthy, hungry to be out there on the field. I thought he had a huge impact, seemed to be very positive with his teammates before and after plays. I didn't love how reliant we were on running the football to our left. I think that's pretty obvious. And you probably had some of those same concerns. However, one way to look at it, if we want to turn it to a positive, is Ronnie Stanley was really productive at the point of attack in the run game. When we add a guy like Derrick Henry, look, if you add any Hall of Fame player, right, it's going to raise the level of the offense. I thought Stanley was closer to his true ability this year. He did make the Pro Bowl. I thought he was closer to his true ability than we had pretty much seen him, except for maybe a 4 or 5 game stretch in 2022 where I thought he really played well, and the Ravens rewarded him for it. They rewarded him for his diligence and for being true to the team. Really incredible, if you ask me, that first of all, it's his own personal financial security, awesome, but also the Ravens' plans, and that's really where I want to kind of talk about extensively in this video. Some of Stanley's contract history is flowing through there as you see it. This sets the Ravens up for really whatever they want to do in the draft. And so you have to credit Ronnie Stanley for this, I think. The fact that we got it done before he hit the free agent market, could he probably have gone out there and got more money? Yes, I think he could have. At the same time, I have this paradoxical thought that we overpaid for him. And what I mean by that is that we probably could have got him in the door for less money, but I think the Ravens and Ronnie Stanley did right by each other. That's my contention. That's just a gut feeling that I have. I don't really have any articles or proof for that. What I really like about how we did this is that it gives the front office freedom in the draft, wherever we want to pick an offensive lineman, a guard, tackle, outside linebacker, corner, whatever. The Ravens can do so. I think pick 27 here becomes more valuable because we're more flexible at 27. Let me phrase it that way, because we have that position, that left tackle position, locked up for 3 more years, and then Rosengarten on an extended contract as well at right tackle, meaning he's got 3 more years on his rookie deal. 27, I think, is more valuable now. If an outside linebacker or D end slides there that we would like to take and plug in because Owe and Van Noy's contracts expire after 2025, we can do so. A corner, if we'd like to kind of recreate or mirror the 2024 draft with Wiggins and Rosengarten, we can do so. I like the options that this gives us, and I think, again, you have to give as much credit as possible to Stanley on the front end and then the front office on the back end for taking care of him during this time and then getting him locked up so that they can have as many options as possible. Additional to that, something that I think is Walter, a couple other people in my Ravens Discord mentioned, we're not predictable now at 27. I remember last year this feeling as the late first-round pick got closer and closer. I did Ken's show on Film Study Ravens, and we kept counting down how many tackles have been selected. Okay, where are the Ravens going to be? None of us knew that Roger Rosengarten was going to be that good in his rookie year once he did get the starting position at right tackle, taking over from Patrick McCarry. There was this feeling of a little bit of dread. I won't have that this year. I don't know about you. We don't have to have a tackle. We don't really have to have a guard at 27. And I think that's the point, is our freedom, our flexibility has been pushed out, I think, regardless of what our thoughts, all of us individually, is on where the Ravens' needs are and from a severity standpoint at O-line, did you think they needed to draft someone at 27 on the O-line? Well, now that need, the pressing need, at least of it, can be pushed out to 59, one pick later, maybe two, because of I think the offensive line in this draft is better than a lot of other people do. Is it going to be possible to wait to take an offensive lineman until 91? That may be one pick too late. I thought we were one pick too late last year, to be honest with you, and I really like Nate Wiggins. Look how it worked out. We got two starters out of Wiggins and Rosengarten in round 1 and round 2. Really didn't get much else, clearly. If you can recreate that, or repeat that, I should say, get two starters from 27 and 59, two guys that can play at that level as a rookie, I think that'll be amazing, and I think that'll be a great success for the front office. And this Ronnie Stanley signing, I think, kind of paves the way for that. Stanley's cap hit, I don't think is really that overwhelming when you look at the salary cap rising or increasing, number one. Number two, when you look at how many other guys are paid above him, I don't think it's an overwhelming number. Is there a part of me that thinks he may not have performed at that number for the entirety of the season? Yes, I'm talking about like maybe parts of 2 or 3 games. A very small percentage of the time of the film that we have that, again, I'm not able to show you here if I want this video to retain monetization, I think was below that level, below that contract level that he's got. But he feels a huge need. It's a domino effect, in my opinion. Any cuts or restructures that occur thereafter, Lamar, Humphrey, etc., is going to hopefully give us a little bit of maneuverability in free agency, right? My own thoughts here are going to focus on the draft, but it could be filled in from free agency as someone who can play guard now, but is a tackle long term. So I'm going to focus on draft guys. I've got 4 listed here, only 3 of which I'll break down because I don't have a ton of film. I haven't studied Gray Zabel. I have 2 games film of him that I have watched just all the way through and forced myself not to take notes. I think 4 of our 5 spots on the O-line are settled, and this settles the 4th one, Ronnie Stanley. We're looking for, in my opinion, someone who can play guard, who is a tackle long term, or someone who played tackle in college that we think we could move to guard. But the key here is, in the event of injury to a Stanley or even a Rosengarten, those guys, and I don't think Membow will be there when we pick at 59, obviously, or 27, excuse me, obviously. Some of these other guys will. I think this really opens us up to some of these other players, some of these other prospects, I should say, essentially to recreate last year's draft, like I said, and select an offensive lineman in round 2 who we think can be a starter at left guard. The Ravens are, regardless of what our opinions are on Falele at right guard, they're going to use him this year as a starter. They got away with it last year, number one. Number two, it's a low salary structure. Hopefully they're not going to think about trying to pay that guy an extension after this year when you can certainly draft people with higher than a 2.6 RAS score who can't adapt post-snap like he can. There's better guards in this draft, but I think that we're going to go in 2025 with him as a starter at right guard. These are the guys I would say look like great candidates for us. They can actually play tackle. They are tackles, in fact. But could move to guard. I think Membow, like I said, is not there. I'm less enthused about Savanea. If I said that name correctly, forgive me if I did not. Basically, I think this pushes the need to solve that issue out a little bit later. And so if you're not familiar with what I do leading up to the draft or what I'm attempting to do this year, let me allow this to flow through one more time. Again, I am in the process of creating a top 100, if you will. I think right now we're up to 60, maybe 58 players that I've gotten film of, like you see here with Donovan Jackson. I'm not going to click on those and allow the play to flow through. I don't show college film on my channel. And in fact, here recently, NFL film gets copyright hit as well. But what I'm attempting to do is show you what's available. If you join my Patreon, you could have access to the plays that are labeled like shown. And if you were able to click on them, you would see run plays, pass plays with some notes on screen that give you some of my ideas with evaluations or thoughts on that particular player. In this case, happens to be Donovan Jackson. I do want to talk about 3 guys. I think this opens up the best one if he was to be there at 27. I mean, we'll have options for a corner, outside linebacker, a slash D end. I really like Nick Scourton from the SEC, who played at Purdue prior to that. But let's look at Armand Membu. For me, I thought he played very well in space. Athletic, able to adjust against linebackers and safeties out in space and allow running backs at least a one-way go, if not a two-way go. I did think he had trouble in one-on-one situations against bigger DNs after about 1.2 to 1.3 seconds, somewhere in that range, meaning he gets locked up, he's got his feet, body, head, in fact, to the correct side. He's won the rep initially and then just kind of loses surface area control of that defensive end, outside linebacker, if you will. But a lot of big runs generated to his side in the run game. Played right tackle, like I said. Very adaptable in pass pro. I think that's been covered by a lot of people. He reminds me of Rosengarten in that way. In the run game, he actually kind of reminds me of Tyler Linderbaum. Forgive me if you didn't show up to hear my thoughts on draft guys, but I think it's related to Ronnie Stanley being signed. Again, the hybrid guys who could play tackle in the event of injury, but could also move over to guard from their college position. And this would be the best case scenario for me. A fantastic talent who's capable of playing tackle and guard, really smart and aware, and I think would be a day one starter for the Ravens and probably about 20 other teams in the NFL. Second guy, a little less pronounced in terms of how people are evaluating him. Emory Jones, very smooth. I think he actually plays out of a better stance and steps than Campbell, the left tackle who's going to go in the top 10. And I don't have the same concerns about Campbell with his arm length. For me, it's his stance and step. I think his stance sucks. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's incredibly high, and it creates a lack of leverage for his initial step, which leads to a lot of false steps, and I think just exacerbates any issues he's got with arm length. But I understand that others are going to focus on arm length. Emory Jones doesn't have those issues with stance and steps. If you are in my Patreon and you have access to that folder, you can kind of see them. You know, anytime you click, I think the Will Campbell folder has 16 or 18 plays, and the Emory Jones folder has about 22. And so you can just literally see them on screen. You can see the differential in their stance. It's not that Will Campbell's not 6'10". He's about the same size. He's a little bit taller than Emory Jones, but his stance is really high. I think Jones is really quick. He can scoop or cut off D tackles and linebackers on run plays away from him. And that's something that we had trouble with on the right side, whether it was Rosengarten or Falele. If you look at the Bills game, we had trouble on run concept. We had to run to our left oftentimes. We know that. I talked about it a little bit earlier. This guy can cut people off. He can scoop a D tackle or D end, which means you're out leveraged. The defensive end, defensive tackle that you're trying to cut off is lined up further to the left than you are, assuming that Emory Jones plays right guard or right tackle like he did at LSU, and you're trying to cut him off, essentially seal his leverage off, not allow him to pursue to the play. Jones is great at that. He plays from a very calm, balanced standpoint in pass pro. I would not compare him to Membao from a diversity standpoint. I think he almost looks a little bit wider than Membao, but not as quick. Almost a light version of Membao, if you ask me. He's got a very high ceiling at right tackle. Could he play right guard? I'm not sure. I think he goes sooner than expected. I think he's a guy that is off the board sooner than a lot of projections have him. For me, I like to talk about how great or good would a pick be in a certain round. And for me, Emory Jones, if we were to get him at round 3, I think that's fantastic. Of course, at that point, if you follow my line, I thought he may be our second offensive lineman drafted at that point. I'm not sure that I would advocate for that. If we knew that Emory Jones was going to be there in round 3, then I would feel really comfortable not taking an offensive lineman in either of the first 2 picks. I think he's a high-level potential guy long-term. Is he someone that could come in and start at left guard over Voorhees? I think he could compete. And that's really what we need at the bare minimum, is we need competition at guard. Number one, depth at tackle. Patrick McCarry kind of used to provide both of those things at the same time. I think Emory Jones got more talent than Patrick McCarry. Will he have as long of a career? I don't know. But perhaps he's not as versatile, not as willing to do so. And guys certainly want, tackle money. But even his teammate, Campbell, over at left tackle, is a guy that's been talked about as possibly playing guard. The one guy who I am a little bit less enthused about is Savanea, and it's not that I don't think he's a good football player and will be in the NFL. I think his pass pro is limited compared to other guys. Basic, excuse me. Let me rephrase that. It's more basic. I would no way, shape, or form compare him to Membao or Campbell or Banks from a pass pro standpoint. I think he's better suited at guard early on. Am I saying he can't play tackle in the NFL? In my opinion, no. I don't make statements like that because I don't think that that's fair. Number one. Number two, I mean, I've watched, I think, 4 games of his from 2024 and 2 from 2023. Had a lot of film of him from 2023 anyway. The tackle who went to Green Bay in last year's draft had set that film saved anyway. I think he's got a lot of experience all over the offensive line. And if I recall, his freshman year, 2022, played exclusively right guard and then played tackle the last 2 seasons. He's really good on combo blocks. Very solid. I don't think he redirects well when guys are slanting or stunting across his face. I think there's some athletic limitations there. And then the pass pro as well, I have some concerns about him. Not with the initial move, but with guys setting him up. Essentially, from a general standpoint, his pass pro looks more basic to me, and I think guys set him up by luring out his hands with a false move, a feint, if you will, and then countering with the actual intention of their move. And I think he can be set up in that way more so than guys like Membow and Emory Jones and Will Campbell. Hopefully I said it in a way that makes sense. Again, forgive me for digressing to talking about some of those guys. I intend to, when I finish the offensive line / edge defender folders, which you saw a little bit of earlier on, they're not completed. So when I say completed, it's any of those players that are listed as edge on the left, column B, or O-line, column C. My intention is to get all of those guys done, and I think I have 3 others done that are not highlighted there. Essentially, if someone's blue, the plays are available for someone to go watch. If there's a black triangle in the top right corner of the cell or the grid square, if you will, for that player, there's a description there that's based on the film that I watched. And for me, I don't really want to put out draft content until I have evaluated as much of the position as possible. And again, my goal is 100. I think we're up to 58 or 60, somewhere around there. It's been a mountain of a project. Forgive me for digressing there. I think it is related to the fact that the Ravens re-signed Ronnie Stanley, did right by him, brought him in to returned him to solidify the offensive line, number one. Number two, retain our floor as an offense. I mean, we've got 2 Hall of Fame guys in the backfield together for at least 1 more year, hopefully beyond that. In the case of Derrick Henry, I'd love to see us extend him out. The cap number for Henry, what's that going to look like after Saquon Barkley signed for $20 million a year? I'm not sure what he wants to do. It would be great if we could say, hey, we would like to get you some security long term and then somehow keep the cap hit where it is, but that may not be realistic given the talent level, and certainly after his 2024, his ridiculous 2024, there'll be teams who would remember that 1 year from now and like to sign him as a free agent if we were not able to secure him a long term. So Stanley, I think, just upgrades the floor, and then round 1 or round 2 offensive line choice, any of those players that I mentioned or talked about on screen when I showed essentially the draft database of the top 100, I think could help the Ravens' floor and ceiling be pushed up even higher for 2025 from an offensive standpoint. Appreciate you guys' time. If you want to give me any feedback on this style of video / commentary, feel free to be blunt. I wish I could show you film of Stanley and kind of break it down, but in attempting to do so earlier this morning, I found that the video was going to be copyright hit and demonetized, so I hope you can understand I would like to have the videos monetized as much as possible to reward me for the time that I put in. But in any case, if you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number one. And then finally, if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this, albeit commentary video about Ronnie Stanley's return and the impact or the trickle-down effect that I think it has in the draft and possibly free agency, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.